At American University, we don't just hope for change, we create it. We don't just dream of a better world, we make it a reality. With a graduate degree from AU, you'll access expert faculty and connections throughout DC to develop skills and experience to turn your passion into purpose. And that purpose can make all the difference in your career. Discover the difference a degree makes at american.edu/grad school.
You are listening to New Theory Radio. Theory Radio.
Welcome to another edition of New Theory Radio here on CFRE, as well as iTunes, as well as any other podcatcher that you use for your podcast. A special year-end edition of New Theory Radio where we are going to provide some input on the year that was when it comes to 2018, as well as provide some theories on 2019. And if you're just tuning into an episode of New Theory Radio, my name is Nav Nanwa. I'm your host. This is a show where we theorize on all things pop culture, everyday life, and current affairs. And I'm very excited to have two awesome panelists joining me this week to dissect 2018 and to provide their thoughts on the year that was, and as well as provide some theories on the year that's coming up. I'm going to start to my left. I have the wonderful, ambitious, currently former school trustee candidate for the city of Brampton, but she's also a correspondent for the Bramptonist, a good friend of mine from my Rogers TV days, Radha Tailor here.
Oh, hello.
Nice. Thank you so much. Round of applause. And joining me on my right, he's somebody that I can always count on to be an emergency guest when somebody calls in sick.
Tell him on plan B. Yeah.
No, but he's not my permanent plan B because I actually want him to be a guest on the show.
We wanted somebody else, but we got
no. No, but hey, I'm glad we got you though. My buddy, he's actually the host of the weekly show.
That is right.
On Sauga 960.
That is it.
Every Sauga 960 AM every Sunday.
Sundays at 12.
My buddy Ryan Gurcharn. Ryan, thank you so much. And also a school trustee candidate from Mississauga.
That's right. Yeah.
Awesome.
We're bonding.
Yes. I think we all did Rogers.
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
Rogers TV.
Yeah. Because actually during my last couple of episodes, I guess, of Talk Local, Ryan was one of the producers when Wasim got lazy. He needed somebody to lead.
No. The show got so complex and we started adding layers on layers.
Oh, we did.
And that's why I came in to help,
Yeah, it was good.
Dissect a few layers.
When did we meet at Rogers? Do you remember?
I don't know, but I remember it was consensual.
All right.
Whatever that means. It was a consensual meeting at Rogers TV at Woofdale.
Oh yeah,
Woofdale campus. If that's what we want to call it. But guys, we are approaching the end of 2018. Before we jump into some topics, just a little around the horn. How was your 2018, Radha? Let's get some personal perspectives first.
It was a roller coaster of a year. I mean,
yeah, I know your hairline's really showing it.
And when he talks like that, it means my hair went from a pixie cut to now it's like 4 inches past my shoulders between between February to December.
I know.
Wow.
Yeah. So fast. If anyone needs hair transplants, like, you can feel free to use it.
So you're just going to start cutting and giving it away now, or what?
Oh, no, you can pluck it out of my head.
Oh, are you saying? Oh, so it's legit stress. Wow. Okay.
No, it was seriously a roller coaster. Like, there was some good times, there were some bad times. I mean, now there's work. We got out the food guide for the city of Brampton.
I know, that was a big project.
That was a huge project.
That was. I remember you were thirsting after that for a long time.
Oh my God. It was I think I accumulated up probably a solid 100 hours just between organizing restaurants and visiting and driving around.
Actually, speaking of the food guide, what was the one interesting cuisine that you found in Brampton that you didn't think we ever had?
I think there's a few. So number one, the Kerala cuisine from India. We have one restaurant that's Kerala. And
are you serious?
Yeah. And
wow.
I quite enjoyed it. So that was really, really good. I knew that we have a Latin American population, but to find the Latin American bakery, I knew it existed before, but that was fantastic. Let's see. I didn't realize that we had Northern Vietnamese pho. And if you think about pho is actually traditionally from the north of the country, not the south. But after the Vietnam War, it was more of the south that actually went into America and into Canada. So a lot of the pho that we're familiar with is not quite, I don't want to say not authentic, but it's more of an adaptation of what pho truly is, because it's a beef broth that was based off of a French soup.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I didn't expect to have that. And just like little small tidbits that just kept popping up. I think what made it more interesting was a lot of the stories that came out.
Yeah.
You know, you hear about people that were captured by, you know, the Nazi soldiers and became chefs, and that's how they learned how to cook.
Wow.
You have people that were living in Montreal or other places. They didn't know the language, but they managed to survive and have thriving businesses. You know, we have a lot of entrepreneurs that just start up in Brampton. All of a sudden, their restaurants just expanding and doing so well. Yeah. So many of these stories that people just don't know about yet.
Wow.
It's just phenomenal. It comes out of Brampton.
That's awesome. It's a pretty in-depth food guide. I remember looking at it actually before an interview that I had. I found the food guide on a table while I was in the waiting room for an interview that I had not too recently, and I was astonished with the amount of details you guys put in there. So shout outs to the Bramptons and yourself for eating all that food and putting into the food guide. And
she doesn't gain up.
No,
pound.
If anything, she probably lost weight. Every time I see Robin, she gets smaller and smaller. What's the secret?
So because I was going to so many restaurants at once,
you're throwing up at everyone.
No.
Oh, isn't what a lot of food critics do though? A lot of food critics typically will try the food but not spit it out, right?
Oh dear, that's terrible.
I thought that's what they did.
Reflux right there. So that's the thing. I have a small appetite because I'm always snacking during the day. So I'd take a small portion and eat it.
Yeah.
To be able to know what it is and what I'm eating and the different spices and the flavor palettes and things like that.
Yeah.
But then I'd have to pack up all the leftovers because I'm going to like 4 or 5 restaurants a day.
Yeah.
My parents were so happy. Oh my God, my family, they knew I was going to these restaurants.
And you just bring it home.
I would want to eat leftovers and I can't because by the time I'm home, like all the food's gone.
Wow.
So like, even if something was just so memorable, I'd be like, Mom, Dad, uncles, what's going on here? Yo, my parents were so happy.
Wow. Ryan, how was your 2018?
It was long. It was long. It was. No, we had because I'm from the political world, and we've had like a leadership change with the PC party. We had an election provincially, then we had a municipal election that had a lot of provincial people who were in there, and it was just like campaign after campaign, and it was very, very. I don't think we got a lot of time to just sit back and reflect on what happened.
Yeah, exactly.
It's good that we're here today.
Yeah, totally. And that's what I kind of wanted to do here today. And I'm glad I got both of you, both individuals that are very in tune with not only the community, but with what's going on in the news as well as pop culture. And, you know, like I mentioned earlier for New Theory Radio, we always like to provide some theories on current affairs, pop culture, and everyday life. So let's talk about the top, you know, maybe like a top 3 I'll get from each of you, including myself. Current affairs stories for 2018, because I feel like a lot had gone down this year, and you know the approach that I took, and Ryan, apologies, I know you weren't allowed to prep as much as Radha was, but I'm sure with your intelligence,
that's fine. I'll just read her notes.
just like stay what Radha says, but in the reverse order. You know, I found I kind of kept mine. Actually, I'm looking at it right now. It's very much close to home and close to Canada. But if you had something that you wanted to talk about that was more global, feel free. But I would say, you know, when looking at my sort of top 3 current affairs stories that I was definitely very much interested in as sort of a citizen of the country, you know, I would go with one of them being sort of the increased gun violence that we've seen in the GTA. I think, you know, I was looking at some numbers. I think pretty much every region is up. I think except for York region, but I think York region's like is only like down by 1 murder. I was looking at actually a news story that I think CTV had done a few days ago. But it's crazy to see the amount of gun violence, not only in Toronto, which is, you know, God forbid it approaches 100 by the end of the year. But it's close. But, you know, even in Brampton, even in Mississauga, I know there's a lot of active citizens and then within the Brampton downtown core that, you know, are very much in tune with what's going on in downtown. And I've seen people post about, you know, people being arrested for gun possession and all that. Like it's crazy to see this increase of gun violence, something that we would normally see a lot of in the U.S., which, you know, again, is not decreasing anytime in the U.S., unfortunately, as well. But just some overall thoughts around that. And Mariah, maybe we'll begin with you on just the sort of increase in gun violence, and what do you think can be done? We know now that the government, the federal government, wants to step in and really assist Toronto and the GTA with some efforts to find some ways to decline it. But
well, feel free to jump in here, Radha. I don't. Okay, so in Mississauga, and I could speak from
I know. Feel free to make it local.
I know we've had. This year the Bonnier Mayor had a community safety town hall. She called a whole bunch of community leaders, and she had consultations about how to address gun violence. And when the Peel Police did their presentation about like what is using up most of their hours, the number one on their list of things that are using up their hours, it was domestic violence. It wasn't
really?
Gun violence. It was domestic violence.
Wow.
Yeah. And what I found interesting is that gun violence wasn't like until number 4 or 5 on the list of things. I think suicide or mental health was like number 3.
Wow.
So it was, for me, it's like there is, yes, definitely a rise of gun violence, but there are so many other things that are like domestic violence and mental health assistance needs to be addressed. And like those are things that we've seen a lot of money cutbacks and across the board, provincially, municipally, federally.
I think in Toronto specifically, they've kind of accredited a lot of this gun violence to gangs, and Tory's been pretty outspoken on this war against gangs and sort of getting out there and sort of stopping the bad guys as he's been referring them as. But I think you bring up an interesting point around the mental health link, because I think that's a lot of where it lies. But also I look at an opportunity, and this is just my opinion, on increased like youth programs as well, and really trying to find ways to engage some of these youth and do more, I guess, localized outreach, which I know we've seen quite a bit.
I know John Tory's working on that. He has a good team working on the youth programs, and yeah, he does. A bunch of my friends are working in it, because I was a youth worker before I got into politics. Yeah, and I still talk to a bunch of them, and they're like, they have experience working with getting kids out of youth out of gangs. So they're putting that knowledge to use in higher up positions, right? So
So I have a question, because I know from the stories I hear when it comes down to Peel, a lot of it does also deal with, like, a lot of at least the shootings does deal a lot with gangs and territorial
wars and all that.
People are saying that's trickling into Brampton. I'm not an expert on this.
But that's why you're on the show.
I don't want experts.
This is new theory.
My question is, why have we seen an increase? And then also, when it comes down to the youth programs, so for instance, the ones that your friends are on, are we also seeing a lack of funding dollars towards it, or is there a lack of support, or will there be enough support that's going to be able to make a very substantial difference, that's going to be able to really affect?
I think those are very good questions. Yeah. I mean, at least they'll have 80 underprivileged kids who can go to summer camp with Ford every year, so that's an upside. 80 saved.
Wow. If you want to put it like that. Well, I'm also wondering, because of this increase, is how are these people getting the guns? Like, is it
Kijiji? I don't know.
Kijiji, eh?
No, I don't know. I'm just throwing it out.
It's like the secret markets.
Well, it's probably like either by legal. Actually, no. So that's the thing. If you're a legal gun owner in sorry, I feel really short right now. If you're a legal gun owner in Canada, chances are you've had training on it, and I mean, in order to get it, you'd have to be a responsible gun owner. A lot of the guns are being used. I'm
definitely illegal.
Illegal means they're smuggling through the U.S.
Radha, did you have one story that you wanted to add that really stood out for you in 2018? I do have 2 more, but let's do a good little back and forth dialogue here.
Okay, so a big one is the election of Doug Ford.
Yeah, I have that as my next one as well.
But not only just the election of Doug Ford, it's now, number 1, very conservative ideals. Number 2, what's going on with Patrick Brown. And then for Brampton, how all of this is affecting each other and when it comes into funding to the municipalities.
It's funny you mention that, because my second one was like, just like yours, was like a conglomeration of like sort of, I call it Ontario Brampton political decisions. Like it's like we've seen
that
this.
Sounds like fun.
Well, I feel like this could be the entire podcast, but
sometimes I go to bed exhausted. Like, you can have a 1-hour conversation about this with a friend, and by the time you leave, you're so mentally exhausted that you're just Like, you need to
frustrated and drained and just.
But you know what? For me, I still remember. Like I'll always remember, and I think you guys can agree too. Like you always remember, where you were when Trump won the election, right? And for me, the Trump election will always kind of hit close to home because it was the week of my wedding, so I remember it vividly. Man. But
I like how people are talking about Trump election and the same tone talk about 9/11. Remember what you're doing at 9/11?
Literally, yeah, it is.
What are you doing when Trump won?
I feel like that's the premise of like the new Michael Moore documentary that he's putting out.
Your wedding when Trump won? I can't remember.
Trump was it was the Wednesday before my wedding.
So it was all your fault.
Yeah, it probably was all my fault. Yeah. But it was interesting because I remember thinking to myself when that happened, I was like, okay, well, you know what? Something like that will probably never happen in Canada because we're so liberal with our ideals.
So naive, Nav.
And then, but even now, when we're talking about even the results of the mayoral election in Mississauga, Bonnie won, but people who came in a close second, and also looking at some of the fringe candidates that ran against John Tory in Toronto, it's interesting the different candidates that we're having that are coming out of the woodwork that have these very strict ideals that aren't scared anymore.
No, they're being empowered.
They're being empowered, yeah.
Definitely being empowered.
And I think my question now is, and we were talking about this before, to what degree do we feed into these ideals?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to call anything a Canadian value, but I'm more
call it.
No, because I don't think it's a representation.
Just define it. Just do it.
But I mean, I don't know. I think I've grown up with liberal ideals in Canada. I was born and raised here.
Well, I think as a child of, your parents are immigrants, right?
Yeah. So
as a child of immigrants, I think it just happened because of just what I come from a family of strong liberal supporters because my family looks at Pierre Trudeau as being like the guy that allowed them in this country.
My parents are from Guyana. I was born and raised there.
Yeah,
and I think my parents are pretty conservative.
Oh yeah, wow. Okay, yeah.
Pay too much taxes.
I think everyone's going to say that anyways. But I think what it is though is that I'm seeing a shift in mentality where it is now okay for people to really be outspoken on conservative attack or on conservative values. And I don't mean conservative values as in like lining up with
social conservative values.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what it's doing is that it's causing a lot of segmentation and segregation within our communities as well. It's causing a lot of resentment.
When you say in our communities, what do you mean?
I mean, when it comes down to, okay, so for instance, religious communities.
Got it.
Because we know now a lot of the voter base is a lot of times, whether you're a political party, whether you are a political candidate, you're now a lot of strategy now is you're going to have a high voter base or a large group of people at a religious institution.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the first things you're going to do is target the religious institutions because that's where people are.
Oh yeah, and it works.
Yeah, and it works, right? So then, but as a result, is there a line where some of these start to trump human rights?
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why I say that is because I remember when I was running for trustee, someone came up to me and asked me, why is it that the Muslims get to have their own prayer, get to have their own room and accommodation for praying 5 times a day? I'm like, look, this isn't a decision from the PDSB.
Yeah.
According to Ontario human rights, we have to allow people religious accommodation.
Yeah.
Which is fine if we're not, I mean, I don't want to say if it's fine or not fine, but I mean, if it's not interrupting any of our classes, if it's not interrupting students, I understand it. When I went to school as well, people were praying on Fridays.
So it's like out of sight, out of mind. If it doesn't affect you, why would you care?
Yeah. Do you remember we were doing this at Turner?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I remember that.
But that's the thing,
Wait, you guys went all the way back to Turner?
Yeah, because this was happening at Turner Festival when we were in high school.
That's what I'm saying. You two went back. You went to Turner?
I remember my first time, is a little detour here. My first time doing Rogers TV, Radha Tailor used to do the news for Cable 10 Live, which was Talk Local. Talk Local, then became Cable 10 Live, then became Talk Local again. Yeah. And then I remember her speaking in her low voice, and I was like, why is this voice sound familiar? And then when Radha and I were talking, and I realized she went to Turner, I was like, oh yeah, she used to do the morning announcements.
I did that too at Lincoln, repping Moulton.
Oh jeez.
To what degree, are we saying we can feed into into ideas that are now fighting liberal ideas of Canada and the general nuances that we have, or the general way that we support each other in various communities? Or am I just imagining this and we are actually supportive of each other in various communities, or are people fighting in order to get a bigger piece of the pie? Like, and that's where now I can't wrap my head around this idea anymore. Because what I want to believe, for instance, when you had the Danforth shooting and everyone as a community came together, when it came down to the Broncos, as a community in Canada, we all came together.
Oh, we did. Yeah, that was a strong movement.
Right. But
I wonder what those two events have in common.
They affected the community. I mean, they affected
What
Canada.
community? Okay.
They affected Canada.
Okay.
So we think.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
I'm seeing that you're disagreeing with me.
Sounds like a little sass from Ryan.
No. I'm just saying, okay. I guess that's the only thing in common you see between those two events. Yeah, I mean, I'm just saying there could... I think, honestly, for certain people, it's easier to feel sympathy for than others.
Yeah. Oh, I agree with that, yeah.
Do you know, okay, this is a crazy theory.
And that's horrible, by the way. I just want to make that clear.
That's justify that. This is a crazy theory that I have when it comes to some of these recent election results. But how much of it is it people who are maybe voting for the first time, but are maybe not well-informed voters and are thinking, you know what if I just vote for so-and-so because I'm just curious to see what happens?
So big. Okay, put it this way. I was telling you guys earlier, I put out a video when I was running for trustee, and literally the video content was, what does a trustee do?
Yeah, it was very informational. I remember I commented on that saying this is great, because I didn't know.
Yeah.
No offense, Ryan.
That organic viewership and sharing was ridiculous. So that means that people are now voting for a role they don't even know about. Yep. And that's just trustee, and a trustee has like a multi-million-dollar budget. Now, when it comes to...
Well, it's 1.2 billion, I think.
Right?
Yeah.
So now...
More than City Hall.
Yeah. It's more than City Hall. So now you're looking at, okay, wait a minute. Do people understand the difference between region? Does people understand... Or the difference between regional or city responsibilities? Do people understand... And a lot of people don't understand what influence an MPP has versus what an MP has versus what a city councillor has versus what a regional councillor has.
Of course not.
There's a huge lack of information about this.
Oh, yeah.
And the thing is, now when it comes into politics, there's so much information that by the time you wake up in the morning, you get yourself to work, you know what's going on in your industry, you come back home, you try to get food on the table, you're tucking your kids into bed. How much time can you actually invest into the politics around you? And especially when it comes into city politics, that's not a sexy topic at all.
Yeah. There was a lot of people I knew in sort of my immediate family that live in Brampton, that when we would talk about the election, I guess they heard about Patrick Brown being ousted by the PC party and sexual allegations. Is that what happened
this year?
Yes, it did. And then they heard about like Patrick Brown suing the CTV regarding the wrongful articles they put out against him regarding that. And there was almost like a sympathy, like, like it was interesting. I wouldn't say it's weird because like people have their own opinions, but it was interesting to see that point of view and just how people were like, oh no, like this is a guy, like people were actually feeling sympathetic for him, like this is a guy trying to pick up his career after.
It just goes back to what I was saying, that it's easy to feel sympathy for certain types of people in our society that we live in today. Yeah. Whereas other people, we could throw them in cages, and that's fine.
Yeah. Look at our neighbors down south.
Weinstein.
Yeah, actually, just to kind of close out this topic, then.
Sorry, my thing for
yes.
I'm not mine directly relates to the gun violence and directly relates to the social conservative is the rise in hate crimes that we've seen consistently from 2016, 2017, and now 2018.
That is crazy, and
it's been across Muslims, Jewish, the community, LGBT, women, and. I don't know. I'm just like, it's just a rise of this happening. And it's like, I don't know. I wish I was not so pessimistic about that. It's not going to get worse.
Yeah. And I still remember when that flyer was going around Brampton, I think in 2016, where they took like an old photo of a bunch of sick men sitting on a bench, and this is like what New Canada's
was it Canada
like.
First or something?
Yeah.
Beneath the Punjabi men that are wearing turbans.
Yes. Yeah. Thanks for clarifying that.
No. Yeah,
it's
people will know.
But there was like a graffiti incident that took place fairly recently.
There was, yeah. There was in a park. They wrote the N-word for
Why?
Bored. I don't know. The rise of you were just talking about the rise of social conservatism and then the rise of like gun violence, and I'm saying it's just the hate crime is being more and more accepted, or hate itself is being more and more validated and being like it's okay. You know, if you don't want people of the LGBT community in your community or in your geographical community, then that's okay.
So how much
you're allowed
of that,
to speak up against that?
So Ryan, how much of that is people here really being influenced by our neighbors down south and assuming that because they're are able to have people that are outspoken and run riots around certain race issues and all that maybe I have the power to take that into my own hands and do something stupid like that? Like, you think what's happening in the U.S. is easily influencing a lot of people in our local communities?
I hate comparing the U.S. to us because okay, I'm not even going to say why because I'll probably be sued. But, no, but it's for me. It's like I've seen it growing up. I've been involved in many political campaigns, and I've seen this when I volunteered with candidates who were racialized versus candidates who weren't. Yeah. And you see this coming from not just white folks, but also people of color would say the exact, you shouldn't be running. You look like part of the problem, not the solution. Yeah. No, and this is what you get as a person of color running, and you hear this, and then so we had to develop strategies where we had a white person advance the candidate who was a racialized person, and the white person had to go knock on the door, have them open, say, "Hi, how you doing?" and then introduce, validate the person of color. It's like, "Oh no, and this person is my friend, so you should vote for them."
But to your point, I would say that it's very apparent when you think about the municipal level, because I'm convinced, and we've seen it most recently at the last election, that there were candidates that were placed there by other candidates to split the vote and get certain candidates not even close at winning something, and it's a lot of that is sort of pitting community members against community members and sort of people being used as pawns.
So that was my 2018 thing of hate crime, and it's I want to say it's going to get less, but I don't know.
Oh man, well, the fact that there's been an increase over the last 3 years is.
I mean, and like you said, with the social conservatism being more accepted, we have I don't want to call out a bunch of MPPs or MPs that have been nominated, and then we have the People's Party, Maxime Bernier's party, who's now, and they're in Mississauga. Like they've elected members. They have AGMs.
It's scary.
It is a reality.
And
that's crazy.
As a Canadian, I was born in small town Manitoba. Moved here.
Wait, really? I didn't know that.
Flin Flon, Manitoba.
Wow.
Really?
Yeah.
They if you did brap in Flint, they'd be like, "Oh, I know what's going on. I know what that is."
Do you know what? When it comes out of culture days, number one was Winnipeg, and my family, I have family relations in Winnipeg, and then number two
was Sauga, right?
No, Winnipeg. My sister was born in Winnipeg.
Oh, but I remember you telling me that Sauga is the second biggest festival in Canada because Winnipeg has the first one.
Winnipeg has the first one.
That's crazy.
But then on culture days, Flin Flon got number two.
Who's Flin Flon?
That sounds made up, right?
So my hometown and my birth town both made it on that list in the top 10.
Oh my god!
Anyways,
I was going to say Manitoba has polar bears. So
I actually, speaking of 2018, I went to Winnipeg, Manitoba for the first time this year, and it was an interesting experience.
Yo, we know how to do. Anyways, what was I saying? Right.
Nobody knows.
Oh man, what were we talking about?
Well, we're talking about Ryan brought up a point that we are starting to see some of these social conservative groups show up here locally, and the fact that they're holding AGMs and all that.
Yeah, but I can't remember what my point was.
That's fine.
I was concentrating too much on the whipped cream on my Starbucks.
Actually, maybe we'll save this for the third segment, which is around predictions for 2019. But on a lighter note, because I feel like we've tackled some deep issues so far. One thing that kind of stood out to me, and I don't know if it stood out to both of you, that I think was definitely hyped up for the entire year and just recently passed in October, was the legalization of marijuana. I don't know about you guys, but I feel like...
Is that what that smell is in here?
Yeah. Yeah, considering I don't smoke, but it's fine.
We're at UTM, by the way. I don't know if that means something.
By the way, it does not actually smell in here. But interestingly enough, the walls are...
We do have a humidifier if you want me to throw it on.
Ooh.
Or is that a heater? I think it's a heater.
That's cool.
Oh, it's an air
Is that a fan?
It's a fan. It's a fan. Sorry.
Wow.
I got that.
How high are you?
But anyways, the legalization of marijuana, I feel like everybody in my network had made the transition to go work for a marijuana company this year. Obviously October 17th was Christmas Day for a lot of smokers. Now we're into an issue where, obviously the Ontario government's being scrutinized regarding who's running their cannabis store online.
Yep.
We're also seeing situations where a lot of marijuana producers currently don't have any supply because obviously, me putting my marketing hat on when you're, entering a new industry, it's very hard to, really figure out what the actual demand's going to be.
Really? Did they really have a question like, oh, we won't need that much weed?
I think part of it as well, though, is that there's a lot of restrictions on how they're allowed to market.
There are a lot. Health Canada's made it very difficult.
Yeah.
Ooh, boo-hoo, I can't market to kids.
No, you can't actually, I believe you can't actually have images of marijuana.
Images of marijuana. It's very similar to cigarettes.
Let's use the word cannabis because I remember marijuana does come from racial undertones.
I was actually, in full transparency, I was interviewing for a cannabis job that I thought would be pretty fun considering my brand management background, and it was for a brand that was affiliated with a very prominent weed figure, and they told me their biggest challenge was the actual name of the product because Health Canada said that you cannot associate a figure or an individual with the product. Yeah. And I'm not even sure if they even ended up releasing the product, to be honest.
I'm really glad.
The other difficulties they have now, when the statement was made like last week, like now the government of Canada is saying, do your best to pay in cash.
Yeah.
Because if there is a paper trail to show that you have purchased cannabis, weed, however you want to call it, and you're trying to cross the border into the United States, you could be blocked from actually.
You can be. You can be.
I still don't understand why people want to go there.
There are very nice places in the United States. I wonder what this industry is going to look like next year.
Me too. That's something that I'm because I actually know a few people that are in the industry right now, and they're not telling me directly, but I feel like after October 17th is when the reality kind of hit them regarding
what's happening.
Well, what's happening, but as well as sort of the difficulty around sort of running a business around it. Yeah. And their excitement's gone down, I'll say that. Based on the excitement of, I'm joining marijuana companies, an emerging industry.
Well, I mean, I think that was done purposely too. If you look at the rules that Ontario specifically has right now, it was supposed to be 44, 42 stores that were going to be open across Ontario. Yeah. And that's no way going to be enough for Ontario at all to get rid of the black market, because the whole point of this was to, eliminate that, right?
Well, Miss Sauga said no, right?
Well, and that's just it. Miss Sauga said no. Markham said no. Brampton, I don't know.
Brampton's doing a referendum around it? Is that what they're doing?
But a lot of the discussion around the table isn't, we're conservatives and we don't want weed in our city. It's more that we don't have control over it, right? We don't have, there isn't enough regulation around it. Right now, I think when Ford was running, he said that we won't have any stores around schools with 250 meters or something like that? Something like that. Yeah, now it's been shrunk to 100 meters or something.
Which is very interesting. Because again,
he went even shorter onto where we could put stores closer to schools.
And I find that point to be very interesting because we went to Turner Fenton. There was an LCBO right behind our school.
Yeah.
And I remember that being a huge argument. I was tuning into one of the council meetings at City of Brampton, and someone did a disposition on marijuana and the having cannabis retailers in the city. And the biggest, I guess, concern that some members on council had was, it's going to be close to proximity to the schools. And, but I'm like, we had a liquor store right behind our school, and
well, so that explains you too.
But you make a really, really good point with that. I remember, out of the entire, all 4 years, there's only been one story I know about where someone brought beer to the school.
And the situations I've seen where people bring it from home.
Yeah.
But we're in an age where people are eating laundry detergent, right?
I know.
So
this new Generation Z is.
So I don't know if I'm not saying that this generation's Okay, let's just leave that.
but let's bring, like, if we're talking about cannabis one more time, though, I mean, I'm thinking about high school, and I knew so many people that were growing.
Oh, yeah. Me too.
100%.
Dealing.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like, okay, and this sounds so bad, but it's, now if legally you can have 4 plants in your home anyways.
Yeah.
I mean, sure, if you're a parent, you may not want that for your child, but I mean, these people got away with it. How this market?
But I think what the good thing is, sorry to interrupt, is that now that if they got caught, they wouldn't have a criminal record.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest part of this, right? Because now you're not a criminal anymore. So that means you could volunteer, you could get your 40 hours, you could go get a job. You know, like before, if you had a record, you couldn't even volunteer.
Yeah,
like that was a big issue.
But I think when it comes down to the regulation of the stores, though, regardless how close or how far it is, if you're underage, these people are not going to be giving it to you.
Yeah, exactly.
But if you're a young person, you are like guaranteed you have found a way in order to find some weed.
Sure, if you want weed, you're going to find weed.
Yeah.
I understand that point. But one of the biggest problems I find with the rollout of this, now that it's only 25 stores in all of Ontario, is that it's all going to be privatized. None of the revenue is going to go back to aside from taxes, right?
Yeah.
And then we're always pushing to have taxes lower and lower and lower. So the revenue that we're going to get is getting less and less and less. And then compared to the LCBO, like I would have preferred it to be rolled out in LCBO sort of type model, because then you'd be able to, you'd have unionized jobs, you'd have better security, you'd have more control over how things are, happening. And I don't know, but now it's not going to be like that. It's like corner stores are going to be able to sell weed.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Well, Shoppers Drug Mart apparently is going to be
this is it.
having cannabis. So.
I heard Second Cup.
Yeah, Second Cup.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Second Cup has noticeably been struggling with their business model for the last few years. So I think this is a bit of a Hail Mary move where it's like, hey, we're going to try something different here.
Oh, my God. If Second Cup goes down, I'll be so sad. I love getting their Italian sodas and their hot chocolate.
That was my thing, like back then.
How much are they paying you for that?
This has been my thing ever since grade 9.
Hey, Second Cup's paying. They should be paying me for allowing you to bake up their Italian sodas.
No, but that's a very, very valid point, which also now makes me question what is okay. I understand that people will now not be arrested for the possession of cannabis, but how is this going to get rid of a black market? Is everything is legalized anyways?
Yeah, I think to Ryan's point, that you would need a bigger footprint of stores, and I think if the fact that a lot of municipalities are going against it, I think you're not really solving the problem, and I think that's what's going to continually sort of affect this
it
market.
could be I heard a conspiracy theory where this is the whole plan of the current government to make it in such a way where, municipalities are like, I don't know, I don't want to do this is horrible. And then they could be like, well, weed's not working in Ontario. Goodbye.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah. Wow.
But then if you're
that's an interesting theory on New Theory Radio.
I don't know. New theory.
Doug Ford, and you're Doug Ford, and you're the people around Doug Ford. Is that what you want as the outcome?
Yeah, I think you want to just sell hash, not so much weed.
Okay, let's move on to pop culture quickly.
Yes.
I think we'll probably do a whole episode on this one. A lot of different things happen when you think, and when I define pop culture, it's mainly like entertainment, and so music, media, celebrity, you name it. I think one thing that really stood out to me, and again, I kind of took the overall theme. Well, for two of them, I took a bit of a theme approach, but I think the first that I really want to talk about was sort of my analysis or just what I recognized when it came to the entertainment industry is just like the need for self-care when it comes to mental health.
Yes.
And I think this year alone, we saw some really unfortunate examples where people like Anthony Bourdain, succumbed to suicide over some, obviously some mental as well as personal issues that he was dealing with. You had, rappers like Mac Miller lose their life, mainly from drug overdoses, which again, he was, somewhat using to kind of ease some of his pain that he was dealing with. And then you had, situations, and this name will probably come up a lot more on this episode, like Kanye West, who was very vocal about him being bipolar, but then you have him going on random Twitter, tirades, him on TMZ claiming slavery is a choice, which really blew up in his face, and it made a lot of people like myself who were Kanye West fans very ashamed for that time being. But just that was one of the things that really stood out to me this year, was just sort of this idea around the need for more mental health support. One other recent example that really stood out, I think it happened 2 weeks ago. What?
DeRozan,
yeah, that early in the year, which we can definitely talk about, as well as Pete Davidson about apparently he was getting trolled online from Ariana Grande's fans, and he was like came up with like an Instagram post about how he wanted to take his life. So it was like pretty crazy.
That's a lot. And I wonder if this is dependent on the rise of social media.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, that's going to be I think that would be a contributing factor. But I also wonder why. I mean, I'm happy now that there is more awareness about this. Because remember, Robin Williams had also taken his life as well.
He did. Huge. And people were still. I think there was a documentary that just came out about that, or about him recently. Okay. Yeah.
But I still think that, you know, when we're talking about mental health, when it comes to the celebrities, they are bringing awareness. But when it comes down to the ground, I think there's still a lot of taboo that surrounds mental health.
There is.
What do you mean?
As in, there's a disconnect. You had referred to this before as these people are celebrities. They're seen in a different light. So, for instance, if you had a friend that had a mental health issue, would that person be comfortable bringing it up to their parents or to be able to talk publicly about it? And in one hand, it's great that these celebrities now are able to talk about it more and, in a way, almost normalize this conversation about mental health. So they're breaking those taboos.
Yeah.
But how long is it going to be until us, as a community, as a city, as individuals, can start sharing our own mental health issues and struggles without stigmatization?
Yeah, that's a huge one. Right,
I got no comment.
No, but okay, nothing. Just to add something there, I feel like for a lot of these celebrities and as well as athletes, because you and I and Ryan were talking about DeMar DeRozan and early in the year when he was a Raptor, talking about his sort of struggles with mental health and towards his performance. Is it a situation where these individuals may have a lot of pressure on them, where it's like, look, I am admired by so many people, I'm in a position where I shouldn't show weakness. I should always be sort of the strong role model or the strong, celebrity that all these people attain to be. And if I show weakness, I'm going to eventually, do more harm and lose maybe some of the credibility that I've been able to gain. Like, is it a mental overtaking because you have a mental illness issue?
I think it possibly could be.
Yeah.
And keep in mind, it's all speculation.
Oh, it is that. We're theorizing here.
But I do believe that definitely could be a contributing factor, especially if you know that your paycheck or you signing the next deal, you signing the next record is dependent on your image.
Totally.
And this curated image that you have, that's going to take a mental toll on you. And that's with or without having a mental illness.
Yeah. Ryan, what are your thoughts?
Nothing.
Nothing on this.
No,
really?
I mean, sure. I think it is coming out. I think it's great that it's being normalized, that we're talking about it.
Yeah.
Bell's Let's Talk has been really putting it at the forefront. But I don't know if at the end of the day it's going to translate to something that could really affect our everyday lives. Because I'm going to bring it right back to, like, we've had cuts in mental health in the province of Ontario here. Right? So, and it's great that the police, Peel Police, I'm curious to see exactly how much money actually gets dedicated towards training police officers towards this. Yeah. But that was number 2, I think, 2 or 3 on what's taking up the time of the Peel Police officers. And I don't think enough attention is being put there.
And I think also CAMH, I believe they do need some more. I mean, they probably would say yes, because you can never have enough funding for mental health.
Totally.
I mean, they always filled at capacity.
Yeah. Waiting lists for that. I heard it was pretty long in Peel itself.
Yeah, it is. And then on top of that, a lot of our hospitals, they may have support for when it comes down to short stays. But when it comes down to aggressive mental health programs, especially in Peel Region, man, we need way more support.
Yeah,
no, it's true, and I've seen locally that there are nonprofits that are trying to do this with no funding, trying to create awareness and try to help various cultures and various demographics and various geographical locations, various class of people to their work. They're targeting and they're trying to really make this a forefront and to bring attention to it and to deal with it. But it's not to the point where it's still acceptable to talk about in some communities, where it's acceptable to actually attack this head on. I know the Peel Board, or I don't know much about the Dufferin Catholic Peel Board, but I know with the Peel Board, they're doing amazing work in trying to address it and to bring it forward. But I don't know if they're really educating enough parents about it.
Yeah, I just hope that in trying to bring this back to more of the sort of the celebrity aspect of it. Like, I just hope the fact that we have people like you mentioned, DeRozan, or some of these individuals like
didn't
Pete
Dwayne come out recently too?
Yeah,
The Rock, Dwayne Johnson.
The Rock Johnson, he came with something as well.
He's the depression.
I also recently I found it was powerful when sort of Lily Singh, Superwoman, took a hiatus from her YouTube channel because she just wanted a mental break because she was feeling drained, and I've noticed that a lot from an influencer standpoint. A lot of influencers that are pressured to consistently deliver content are ultimately sort of falling a victim to their own mental health or mental stresses around trying to top what they put out next, and sort of being able to appease their fan base, and then sometimes it's just like, look, I just need to take a mental break and not do anything because I'm driving myself crazy. I find the act of a lot of these things to be powerful for people that look up to these individuals, because I'm hoping it somewhat tells them, hey, sometimes you just need to slow down and smell the roses versus continually trying to push yourself and get to this level.
I'm going to be devil's advocate here, and I'm going to ask. An average person here that's not a celebrity, that does not have a lot of money.
Yeah.
Can they afford to do that?
No, I know. It's
Where, in Ontario?
Or anywhere.
Yeah, anywhere.
I'd say
no, I mean anywhere. Like in the States, definitely you can't.
Oh, definitely you can't. I mean, at least with Ontario, there's short-term disability leave, but...
Right.
But in order to actually take a leave of absence...
Oh, man.
Well, mental health days aren't even a thing for a lot of workplaces.
No, they're not.
No, you'd have to use up a sick day in order, and now even that's being cut apparently. So,
but especially
a different discussion.
But especially if you're in a, I guess non-conventional music maybe isn't the best word, but if you're in a more of an arts or sports industry where a lot of pressure is sort of put on you to perform at a consistent rate, like, yeah, to your point, like, do mental health days really exist? Like, for these individuals who are pressured to continually produce content, results from a sports standpoint, music, movies, you name it. Right?
I don't know. I mean, I do respect artists, and I think it's really important. But I mean, that is part of the gig. That is what you're signing up for. It is. You should know how to self-care. I mean, if you haven't figured that out, I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah.
And to that point as well, I mean, the earning for a lot of those people, if we're talking celebrities, the earning for those people is huge.
It is
absolutely huge.
Sure, but let's talk about the local celebrities who don't have the benefits, don't have the access to it. You're trying to make a living off of just or local artists just currently who haven't made it big, but it's like they're hustling, and it's like what resources do they have?
One thing that really stood out to me this year, and feel free to chime in, was just the increased representation that we saw in the mainstream. You and I, we talked about earlier when we were at Starbucks about the power of Black Panther and just what that's done. The success of Crazy Rich Asians and how that became a blockbuster hit.
Yeah, sure. And Get Out.
Get Out as well.
Hassan
Minaj Patriot Act, which is an awesome show that's killing it on Netflix that I really enjoy watching. And most recently, I don't want to bring this one up, but it might be still going on considering how many events they had. The Priyanka Chopra and Nick Jonas wedding, which lasted for the entire year.
So many people not featured the Bollywood side of that wedding.
Yeah, well, I from what I saw, I think they did.
People Magazine totally did, but not some of the other online publications.
Really?
Well, she got married. What?
Yeah, Priyanka Chopra and Nick Jonas got married. And they did it in India. And
and they had a Sangeet, and they had everything. Yeah.
She's married now?
You didn't know this, right?
So sad, guys.
You're married.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, but she was on my list.
Okay. Hey, that was the first question I was going to ask you is what are your thoughts on the
wife?
She has a list, too.
Oh, my God. That's funny. But no, but again, the increased representation in the mainstream of just different ethnicities. I love it. Like, I think it's great. I think it's about time. And also, I don't want to put this in the same. Well, I could when it comes to representation, but then you've also had, you know, a lot more, you know, transgendered LGBTQ representation in a lot of different mediums as well. You know, it's great to see sort of the entertainment industry become more inclusive, which again, some people would say that, you know, it should have been like this, you know, years ago. But I think now that we're, you know, starting to see it, and we're starting to see, you know, movies like Black Panther or even get nominated for prestigious awards, I think it's great. I think it's about time.
I think it's good. I'm going to also say though that I'm still finding that there's still some sort of culture of the other.
Yeah.
I think it still exists.
100%.
Of course. So
100%.
I think we are moving in a good direction, but I want it to come to a point where, you know, if you have a lead starring role, I just want to know that it doesn't matter your race, your creed, your religion, whatever it is, you should be able to take on that role.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Like even just some of the movies aren't coming to mind right now, but some of the examples that you've seen where, you know, a non-Asian actor was casted in an Asian role. Mm-hmm. And people were wondering, you know, why is that happening when there's perfectly qualified Asian actors? I think John Cho may have come up in that conversation a few years ago, and some type of role that was casted for a non-Asian person. They're like, hey, John Cho is a perfectly credible actor that could sort of step into that role and do it as good as anybody else. I think that's you know, something that definitely the entertainment industry has done a great job at sort of addressing this year, in my view.
See, I don't know. Okay, so of all the groups you've mentioned, the one that I haven't heard yet was the Indigenous or First Nations groups. And I still think that the way, and in the States, it's, I don't want to say worse, but it's worse in Ontario because we still have places in Ontario where we have boiling water advisories, they don't have electricity. But, and I'm laughing at this because it's ridiculous that it's not happening. But like in the entertainment industry, we don't see that yet, right? Like there was an amazing series done by CBC and APTN called was it Blackstone? And that's on Netflix, and I highly recommend everybody see it. And it really shows it's like an amazing drama. There's comedy in there, but you actually see the actual situations of like the reserves that exist in Ontario. And Manitoba.
Really? I never heard of that.
Oh, yeah. So Blackstone, I highly recommend it. But it's like, I mean, and it has been nominated for awards and stuff in Canada. But on the, like, we're talking Hollywood, I still haven't seen that breakthrough yet for our Indigenous folks.
Yeah, I can totally agree with that.
Well, especially, and I think there's a great opportunity sort of within the Canadian entertainment industry. I'm glad APTN and CBC partnered up on that to really share those stories because, it's funny you mentioned the U.S. I don't see too much around the Indigenous population in the U.S. and just what's going on there.
And the fact that like Thanksgiving is still celebrated in a very specific Christopher Columbus Day is still, you know what I mean? So it's not like, I don't think it's good that we have like, you know, Marvel's sorry, I was gonna say Wakanda, but that's not Black Panther. But it's like it's like a tiny step forward. There's still so much to.
I think there is, but I do think though that Black Panther actually was a very, very good movie.
Yeah,
I think at that time for that community, I think there was a message of empowerment.
It was totally.
Oh yeah.
We can come in. Actually,
black director, black cast, like it just was so powerful. Kendrick Lamar came out with an amazing soundtrack that just got recently nominated for Album of the Year for a Grammy. Like it's a soundtrack. It's amazing.
And Lamar got a Pulitzer.
I got a Pulitzer. Yeah.
But I remember one of the stories that came out of it is that there was this little. I think that he was Chinese. He was like 3.5, 4 years old. Or maybe a little bit older. And apparently, like, he was walking with his parents, and then he saw a black guy. Yeah. And then, so he did the Wakanda symbol. And the guy did it back. Because, like,
that's awesome.
And just because, like, I don't know whether that's a symbol of a brotherhood or, you know, just because it's the culture, but just the fact that someone could do that regardless of race, and just because they just had such a passion, either whether it's for the movie or because they saw something that related in this person that was walking by. It's like, that's how you get rid of fear and ignorance and discrimination.
No, you totally do.
How long ago was Avatar made?
Avatar was 2009.
How do you remember that?
Because I remember not watching it when it was in theaters, but watching it when it came out on DVD.
For those of you listening, DVD
and I may have seen it because somebody had rented it from a Blockbuster.
For those of you listening, Blockbuster. No, the reason I bring that up is because like the treatment of like that was a total allegory for like the treatment of Indigenous and First Nations folks, right?
Yeah.
And colonialization. And I still think that's where we're at. Like I don't think we've moved beyond that. I don't know. Sorry.
No.
Bring a damper on this. Like we're moving forward.
But I think it's a fair point, and I'm hoping, to your point, Ryan, that this year was just the start of sort of telling more of those stories.
I'm hoping so. I'm really hoping so.
Yeah, because I think it's important for sure.
You know what I absolutely loved? I think it was last year, Moana.
Yeah, Moana was good.
I loved reading about, number one, the amount of research that Disney did into the Polynesian culture.
Yeah.
And I loved seeing it portrayed on the big screen, and I loved that The Rock was in it, and the person that played Moana as well.
And to that point, like, for example, my exposure to the Polynesian culture has only been through pro wrestling, where Polynesian wrestlers are conveyed as, like, carnivores. Or
the stereotypes.
That are, like, conveyed as, like, just total, just tribal,
very backwards, not civilized. It's the same things that they would say about the black culture of folks from the countries in Africa.
Apparently anyone from India is like a Maharaja or something.
Well, this shocked me the other day. So yesterday, for the first time, because I finally have TV, we've been just doing streaming this entire time, so I haven't seen a commercial.
2018, Ryan.
No, well, I've been at Netflix and like Crave and like just like video on demand. Like that was my life since we moved into our new condo. No TV whatsoever. We finally got like live TV, and I am watching commercials, and there are brown people in there who aren't like terrorists or doctors, and they're just like regular folks. One was married to a white person with a mixed kid, and I was like, "What happened?" when I wasn't paying attention to commercials.
Even in Bird Box, you guys watch Bird Box on Netflix, the new Sandra Bullock?
I'm scared of getting nightmares. So
It's actually it's getting mixed reviews online. I thought it was pretty good, but there is that cast in general is pretty ethnic. It's full of ethnicity, but there is a South Asian doctor in there too that has a
that's not a stereotype.
I guess not a stereotype, but again, it's good to see that visibility.
Sure, but like doctors, taxi drivers, engineers, accountants. Let's move away from that.
I know. It's funny you mention that because my wife was watching Mean Girls last night, and there is a brown guy in Mean Girls who plays like a math nerd. Kevin G. Yeah.
What's he up to? I know he's
and a rapper.
I don't know.
He was a rapper. He did this.
Yeah, the Mathlete song.
Yeah,
the math song.
That's the best.
No, but now he does chalk art and some other things.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow,
that's good for him.
What was I going to say? So I was
sure he's happy.
earlier that I had seen Come From Away, and because it's based in Newfoundland, I guess one of the things about it was getting a multicultural cast. And right now, their casting is phenomenal. Like, we're talking about wonderful.
So this podcast is brought to you by Come From Away.
No, but what it is that a lot of people that are on stage right now are faces that you would recognize either from commercials. Or
excellent! That's great. Yeah, that's awesome.
Or one of the guys had been doing Second City for so. I've seen 3 performances with him from Second City.
Yeah,
like just phenomenal casting. So there's one person. His name is Ali Momin. Muslim name.
Yeah.
I don't actually know if that's his religion or not. But anyways, he's now, I believe, an acting prof at Sheridan College as well.
Okay, in Brampton or Oakville?
Oakville,
yeah.
But I was going through his reel today, and he said everything from Biba Boys. I think that was a Deepa Meta film.
Yeah, it was.
He was on stage introducing a role from like Monsoon Wedding.
Yeah.
But then on top of that, he's been in other stories. Like he was in Kim's Convenience. It's just a guy.
Oh,
with glasses, just like your regular typical person.
Well, Kim's Convenience had a really breakthrough year this year too. And again, that's like it's interesting to see that being a Canadian-based show from CBC.
I think before that was what corner gas station.
Corner gas.
Yes, yeah.
But then you
The
also
whitest show ever.
But you also had a little mosque on the prairie. Like,
that was.
I think Little Mosque.
It didn't do as big though.
Didn't know.
That was corner gas.
Little Mosque was great in the fact that it did portray some of the issues you face when you're a small community and you're of a different religion. But I love seeing the people that just play your everyday nonsense role. Like to Ali, he's had roles where he just plays the police officer.
Well, that's like that's the reason why I love Hassan Minaj so well, because he
Hassan
Bhai, yeah, because he talks like how we talk. Like he's not playing a stereotype. Like, and what's great is like he's just someone that you would know, like in your immediate network, that would just talk to you about what's going on in the world. And I think that approach is very effective because it paints this. I think everybody knows somebody like him.
He's relatable.
He's definitely
people
relatable.
like us.
Yeah, he is.
But I think that's what it is as well, is to make sure that we just don't keep tokenizing people of color or people of different religions or people of different races. Because at the end of the day, like if I were to take on a role, like, you can't put me as someone who comes from a traditional household, because it's not me. I'm someone who grew up playing the flute and did some horseback riding.
And you were born in Manitoba, so.
Right. It doesn't hit that stereotype, and I don't think any of us hit the stereotype. So now we need to find people that are more relatable to us on air.
You know what? Just to kind of, because I know we've done a great job sort of doing this with the previous topics, I'm going to localize this a little bit. This is part of the conversation that I'm having with a lot of different community groups that run ethnic festivals within sort of the GTA. Because a lot of those ethnic festivals, and Ryan, I'd love to get your opinion on this. A lot of this was driven around appeasing the new immigrants, new immigrant families, kind of making them feel like they're at home by showcasing, different food fairs and live performances that, represent different countries and so on. But I'm finding now that there is a generation of second generation people that are Canadian, but are South Asian or Chinese or Korean and you name it. And that, like, as much as they love their culture, they don't want to be slapped in the face with it, because they're like, look, I get it. Like, I get that at home. I'm very proud of who I am. But going to these classic ethnic festivals just doesn't attract me, because I have Canadian interests. Like, I have interests that are more mainstream, that, speak to who I am as an individual, versus trying to, pretend like I'm somewhat of a new immigrant that needs to feel assimilated. So I've had these conversations with different with different groups, because they're always telling me, we want to get younger people involved. We want to, attract a younger demographic. Want to get this, want to get that. And I tell them, like, the reason why you're not doing it is because you're programming stuff that's geared towards their parents, not to them as individuals. Yeah. And you almost have to kind of shift the mindset. But I think the fear then becomes, are we going to alienate some people?
Yeah. Well, I haven't actually heard people who have deep roots in their community, second generation, who would say it's a little too much of that culture and more mainstream, because I haven't heard that distinction.
Yeah.
Maybe you have, but what I have heard is that those events that they go to, it's not relatable for them.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah.
I wouldn't separate it as it's more mainstream, more Canadian, because being Canadian we should do another podcast.
But I think we're trying to say, like, multiculturalism is now mainstream based on what we've seen in the media recently. So, but to your point, yeah.
I would say that on what those groups have to do, and some of them are doing it, some of them are not, and some of them are better at it than others, are at the organizational stage, the planning stage, is to have more young folks and people who are their target audience around the table for that. And it's like, for example, Muslim Fest. They do a great, I think, a great way of engaging the newer generation of Muslims. They show up. Halal Fest at the International Center, and again at Celebration Square.
I think I saw Young Dundas did Kotu Fest, like Kotu Roti, like for Tamil people, and like I think I saw the bill, and it was all like younger, like Tamil acts that were on there, and I was like, this is pretty cool.
So there are community groups who are better at that than others. I think there's still some that are very much stuck in their ways, and that's fine. Maybe that's who they want to, and it could be just a bunch of old Uncle G's who want to be like, the young people never show up, and maybe that's just when they don't really care.
I kind of want to jump ahead and or do a little around the table and sort of theorize on what do you guys. What are your theories on 2019? Like, what are 3 things that you think we're probably going to see? And they can be anything: pop culture, current affairs, everyday life related. I guess I'll start with mine, and then we'll go around, and then we'll comment after. So 3 things that I'm going to predict on 2019. Number 1, I'm going to predict that Kawhi Leonard stays in Toronto after the Raps make the NBA Finals.
Okay.
I'm going to predict that Avengers Endgame will be the biggest movie of all time based on financials, based on the amount of money it brings in. And number 1, I think this is more of just an everyday life thing. I think there's going to be a more of a movement towards anti-social media. I think celebrities is going to be one where you're going to start seeing a lot of celebrities sort of go against social media and not want to use it as a personal means, more of as a promotional means, and maybe sort of close off a little bit from their fan base, because I think they've been encouraged to open up. But I think based on some of the cyberbullying that we're seeing and some of the issues, and even people like Alessia Cara, taking social media breaks because of all the hate that she's been getting. Yeah. I think you're going to see more and more of that, and I think it's going to be done in a way to send the message that people need their privacy, and people to the point that we were talking about earlier, people need self-care, and I think you're going to see a lot more of just that trickling down to people like us as well, where we're just going to be like, what, maybe I am going to deactivate my Facebook account because I just don't want to see certain things, or I don't want to be just around it. I kind of want my privacy. So I'm sensing that 2019, that's my theory, that we might be on this little anti-social media tip. Rather, what are your 3 things that you think are going to happen, or 3 theories on 2019 that you think might come to fruition?
I think right now I actually only have 2. Adding on to social media, I think also from the social media platforms, we're going to be seeing what's the best way of putting this? There's going to be more monetization and more data gathering when it comes down to ads and marketing for companies. And I think
Facebook got in trouble for that this year, or what?
Yeah. But I think now it's also going to be like with the data scraping, I think now we're going to see less conversations being authentically built
and more direct ads.
Yeah, it's going to be more ads, and it's going to be more targeted brands and more people trying to curate a brand rather than just having open conversations. Number 1, I think we're going to see, for this coming year, we're going to see a higher rise of social conservatism. But then I think afterwards, it might start decreasing again.
Yeah.
Afterwards is in 2019 or 2020?
Like more like 2020, 2021. But I think we're on a surgence right now, especially with what's going on with Trumpism, what's going on in Brampton, what's going on with just the general ideals, and if you put in the ecosystem that we're living in right now, I think it's a volcano, and the volcano is going to be erupting at some point in time, and I just don't know what's going to be that trigger, and I don't know what's going to be affecting it.
And do you feel like that social conservatism will play a big role in the federal election?
Yeah.
Okay.
That was my prediction.
Yeah. Those are my main 2. The other one, actually, about technology, I think we're going to start seeing we're going to see an advancement when it comes down to voice-activated and smart technologies. Yeah. But I think at the same time, we're also going to see a rise of resistance because people are wary of their data protection.
And it'll be like a Black Mirror episode.
Yeah. So I think something like that's going to happen. Yeah.
Crazy.
That's interesting.
Ryan, what are some of your theories for 2019?
I don't know if I have 3, but...
well, whatever.
Yeah. So, definitely, I predict the next election federally is going to definitely be about othering. That's going to be forefront. The discussion between social conservatism and liberalism.
Do you feel like we'll have, just to add to that, do you think there could be a possibility outside of the Green Party of another fringe party being sort of voted in somewhere, like taking a seat?
I don't know how divided the left will be on this, but I do know that there will be a united conservative, social conservative push. I know that right now there's another party, the People's Party, that is split from the Conservative Party, but I don't know if it's enough to really split the right. Does that make sense? But I think that it will definitely play. The conversation I'd be interested to see what happens in the fall is how that plays out, how race plays out, how othering really influences people's
I like
votes.
that word, othering.
Orientalism by Edward Said or Said.
That's all about you, man.
Okay.
I thought you read it.
Okay. I guess my other prediction would be there's going to be a huge rise of like people listening to my show on 960. That's a plug for my show. The weekly show. It is a political talk show, and it's going to be
that I want to be guests on both of your shows more often.
No, you guys will be. Both you guys will be, because this will be a weekly show where we theorize on different topics and play some music as well. But no,
that's just my prediction.
That's especially Ryan's pop culture prediction is him getting more listeners to his radio show.
That's my.
I'm hoping. There's so much that we could talk about still.
But, we could. But I think this was a good sort of end of year discussion. I think when you generalize and you look at overall themes and just sort of key stories affecting us, I think there was a lot that took place this year. And 2019, just like every year, I think will definitely be an interesting year to see where the pendulum swings. Ryan, where can the audience connect with you if they want to learn more about Ryan Gurcharn and the weekly show?
Oh, okay.
Just to wrap up.
They can go to Sauga, SAUGA 960.ca.
Awesome.
Or .com.
Do you have any social handles or no?
Or Ryan Gurcharn. Just look me up in public. Very, very not antisocial. Everything I do is on social media.
How do they spell your last name?
Yes.
Yeah, that's a very good question. So
because I might butcher in the iTunes description. So
that's good. So it's RYAN. Yeah. That's the first one. That's easy for some people. And my last name is Gurcharn. Gurcharn.
Awesome.
Yep.
Soon to be dad, actually.
Yeah.
Excellent. February's coming up. It's a big year.
I'm excited to bring a child into this world.
Yeah.
With all the stuff that's happening and racism on the rise.
A year from now, we'll get Ryan's child on the show and talk about the year that was in 2019.
It's going to be so much fun.
Oh my God, there's a kid's book called ABCs for Little G's, and it goes through the alphabet, but it's all... the letters are all different sneakers.
Oh, yeah?
Adidas, and it's for Nike.
That's hilarious.
Wow. Yes, learn your brands early. That's always good.
I wonder...
To be a good capitalist, I think is very important to learn your brands.
I just hope that... I just hope for that book, the L's for Lugs. You ever wore a pair of lugs when you were younger?
Oh, I remember lugs.
I just gave it to my buddy in Australia.
Where can the audience connect with you, Radha Tailor?
At Radha Tailor, and let me spell it out for you. Okay, so my voicemail is quite legitimately, hi, you reached the voicemail of Radha Tailor. That's RADHATAILOR. Or, in other words, tailor, as if a needle is pulling thread and you're tailoring. So it's at Radha Tailor. That's all my handles.
And you're still contributing to the Bramptonist as well?
I am.
Bramptonist.com. Shout outs to the whole team there. Yep. And if you want to connect more on New Theory Radio, you can hit us up on our social channels on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Everything is at New Theory Radio, or hit me up at Nanwa on Twitter, at Nav Nanwa on Instagram. Thanks so much for tuning in.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks to my lovely panelists for being awesome and for sharing their thoughts. And we will see you again next time on New Theory Radio here on CFRE 91.9. Peace.